It's the Daily Talk Show, episode 530.
Back on the podcast, Lisa Stephenson.
Yes, I'm back.
How are you?
I'm so good.
98 was the last episode you were on. Like when we travelled down to your place in Mornington.
You did.
There was no cameras. Mm-hmm. There was no Mr. 97.
That was good, actually. I'm glad there was no cameras. We didn't have to have clothes on or anything.
Yeah, that was true. Yeah. Well, there was a lot of talk. I vividly remember that chat because we ended up talking about like sitting in the shower crying, like it was.
Oh,
do you remember?
Thanks for
that?
bringing that up.
Yeah,
that was.
You can listen to it if you want. Number 98.
Yeah, it was fun actually. Mm-hmm. So that's like a long time ago, really. Have you got better?
No, we actually haven't. No,
but we haven't.
You're having a good time though. You guys are doing great. You're doing really great.
Thank you.
The 10,000 rule, 10,000 hour rule.
Mm.
I mean, we're nowhere near 10,000 hours, but I mean, it's like you've been coaching for many, many years. 2 years into your journey, what was your, because you asked us how we're going and we were just joking around. I think we're going okay. Yeah. I think we've got lots of room for improvement. Mm-hmm. I think we're pretty hard on ourselves in terms of where we want to be. So we look back at 500 episodes and it's only until we create some highlights video that we even realise how much we've done because we're so focused on where we're going.
Where are you going?
How's that for you? I mean, you work in this space of helping people through that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What is it for you personally?
Yeah. So when I look back sort of 10, 15 years ago and think about the people I was coaching, I wonder if they're okay.
Oh, it was me. We did a coaching session at a cafe and I'm okay.
Are you okay?
Oh, I think.
Yeah. Well, I did personal training with you and I'm okay.
No, is it based on the shit you're spinning then?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to think about because if we're doing what we're meant to be doing well, and current research tells us we need to be spending about 5 hours a week just to stay current and to be developing our talent, right? And so if we're doing that and we're evolving, it should mean we're better than we were yesterday and we're better than we were a year ago. So certainly when I look back over, clearly it'll surprise you that I'm this old, but when I look back at 20 years of consulting and coaching and mentoring, you do kind of cringe a bit on the inside. And hopefully I'll still feel that about now, in another 10 years because we do learn so much every day.
Are we in some kind of like, what's that little animal that has a really hard back? It's like
an echidna?
Nah. They're like you look it up.
Armadillo?
Yeah, little armadillo. Like, do we have an armadillo shield on in the time to not feel that external eyes on us that's actually saying you're actually not as good.
Or like spikes of an echidna could work as well.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I like the hard shell. You think about you in 10 years thinking about you now and you saying, I'm nowhere near where I was now. So you kind of can cringe. I do the same. How do you think people are coping through these times when they're just starting? Or what is a coping mechanism to get through that early stage of doing anything?
Yeah. So there's a few things that we should be really mindful of. One thing that I've really noticed, because I coach very much in that space of high performance, is a trait of people who are absolutely wanting to be the very best version of themselves are really hard on themselves. So when I sit down to start a coaching session, the first thing people want to do is talk to me about what's not working, and they're very self-critical and the first people to kind of gather evidence about what they need to be doing better. And so it's really challenging for people when I say, tell me about what's working really well. We end up with this kind of culture, I think, in Australia where we end up with well-developed weaknesses because we spend a lot of time talking about improving ourselves and areas for development, and we do not spend enough time talking and thinking about what we're doing really well. And it makes sense, right, that the stuff that we're doing really well is the stuff we enjoy more.
Yeah. So
for you guys, I'd say when did you last have a really great, meaningful conversation about what you're absolutely smashing out of the park? What's going really, really well in business and for your audience?
Oh, we're egomaniacs, patting each other on the back every day.
Well, it feels like it feels like a luxury, right? When it feels like that's not a pain point that needs to be addressed. So, for instance, if you've got a car and one tire is flat, you don't need to focus on anything else other than the flat tire, because the idea is if I get the flat tire working, everything's going to be fine.
Everything will work and I can get to where I need to go to. But with development, you know, going back to the armadillo, I can't quite believe we got that word in so early and quickly. But we do develop.
Spirit animal.
Yeah. Your spirit animal.
My spirit animal.
That doesn't sound very attractive.
Yeah,
we could have come up with something better than
Are they
that.
smart?
I mean, don't judge my armadillo.
I don't look. We're going to Mr.
Mr.
97.
yeah,
he's on
the
it.
smartest
He's
kid
on
in
it.
the
We're going to
room.
find
Qualities
out.
of an armadillo.
You heard it here first, people. Like we're all about the armadillo.
Hard shell. Beautiful hair.
Yeah, aggressive.
Aggressive.
Yeah,
high
anxious.
testosterone.
Yeah.
And hides. Don't they hide? Yeah. So, you know, we do develop this outer exterior that is about what we want to project to the world and how we want people to see us. And what we know is that current trends are telling us that we expect and want to see vulnerability, and authenticity is something that we talk about, but how many people are actually really good at that? You know, it gets so lost in all the noise of everything that we're trying to be.
What about asking for help?
What?
Yeah.
What? I mean, it's part of our culture that we're meant to, I talk about the three things. We're meant to know, we're meant to be right, and we're meant to look good. And so there's something about this ability that we have to say, actually, what if I don't know the answers? And what if I'm the person who's asking questions that I don't know the answers to? And what role do I have to play with others in terms of learning? Like, we miss a lot when we're so worried about having to know.
I think maybe part of it too is being in a period of needing to ask for help at the moment. Part of the challenge is because we've been pretending to know. And so when you've been pretending to know, it becomes a lot harder because you have to address the fact that you didn't know before.
Yeah. And also, have you noticed how busy we all are? You know, the pace at which we are working and churning out everything in our life is so fast. So we just keep going, you know, we just keep going and we get up each day. And I mean, to be busy, I mean, we understand now, we've had this conversation, you know, everyone understands that being busy is not good for us. It doesn't mean that we're great at what we're doing or that we're talented. In fact, there's real consequences for how busy we are that I don't think we've quite seen yet, you know.
Yeah, it's because I guess there is that idea of if I've got the option of doing something or nothing, I'm better off doing something. How do we distinguish between the moments that we need? We had Stacey June on yesterday and she was talking about space. We need space, need to create space. When do we need space and when do we actually need to get our shit together? How do we create that distinction?
Yeah, we need stillness every day. You know, we talk a lot about being healthy and physical activity and learning and having great plans for our future. But actually, our brain's got to have time to process and our body's got to have time to heal. So even now when we see people sitting on trains and out exercising, you know, hopefully they're just listening to you. But, you know, we're so full. Like, people tell me about how they're listening to stuff even when they're in the shower. And I'm like, oh, really? That's a visual I didn't quite need, but okay. And so it's got to be part of our everyday habits. We've got to have an everyday habit that says, you know, I have 20 minutes of window time a day, which is where I just need space to kind of look and enjoy whatever view. It might be a cafe, it might be sitting in my office, but we've got to have times where we stop. And also reflection. You know, reflection, there's something about giving yourself time to decide what meaning you want to give the experiences that you're having, time to assess what's working and not working for you. And also making sure that you have time for stuff that's opportunistic. You know, when we get so scheduled that we can miss stuff that we really need to have.
How do you create stillness?
So this is actually a challenge for me. Like, I talk about this because it's a challenge that I work on as well. You know, I'm a single full-time working mum with 3 children. Like, firstly, what was I thinking? But, you know, so life is really full and busy, but I do have some non-negotiables, and they might be simple things like whether it's going for a massage. Walking is really important to me. It's quite sacred to have that time each morning where I walk. I don't ever start my day without meditating. and I don't mean this one, the clenched little fingertips and
You mean the Daily Talk Show?
Yeah, that's
Solid session.
Yeah, that's right.
Meditation.
Yeah, so there's lots of things we can do that don't take time or money but allow us that space to actually process. Have you guys heard of streamed conscious writing?
No. But I can
So it's like the artist's way. It's taking a notepad and writing whatever comes to mind, the garbage and
just
everything.
whatever comes out type of thing.
Yeah.
Look at you,
it's
being all
good.
wise.
Our mum was into it, and it's a famous old book, The Artist's Way, and so there's a bunch of things to do to untap creativity. But that I did that for a long time, and I did it in times where it was hard, where I was going through something hard, and it was great. Like just getting it out. There's so much crap. Like when you start writing, it's like some of it's just the most garbage. But the point is not to judge what's coming out. It's just
don't edit. You don't even have to show it to anyone.
Yeah.
But there's something really good for us and healthy for us about taking the time to just sit and be and pick up a pen. You can type as well, but literally just writing what's on your mind. And sometimes it allows you to let stuff go. There's a whole lot of really fascinating research about what happens when we write before we go to sleep, like what our brain can then actually do with that content. So there's a whole lot of strategies, Josh, around how we look after ourselves and take that space and time.
Sorry, you go.
Well, no, you go.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're just having a bit of a tear off.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah,
It's a Persian phrase.
Yeah, Persian phrase.
Yeah.
Tussle. The high performers, people who are in high up leadership roles within businesses that are very goal driven, outcome focused. How do you convince them when these things don't necessarily have an outcome on the other side that is tangible for many years, or it could be months, or it could be a few sessions? But
what about if it's intangible?
Yeah, or if the result is intangible, you can't see it.
Yeah. So the challenge with people who are in massive jobs, and that might be a CEO or it can be someone who's an elite athlete, whose day starts at 5 a.m, is getting them to understand the consequence of not taking care of themselves and also the consequences for people around them. So, if you've got a marriage or a primary relationship or you're a parent, or perhaps you're involved in your community, making sure that you have the priority and giving the time to the stuff that really matters is going to give back to you in so many ways. So I think this is a real challenge that, that particularly leaders face, is they all feel time poor. None of them are sitting around going, I'm bored, what will I do today? There's lots of different things that they're managing. But if you don't write it down, if you don't commit to it, if you don't make it part of your plan, it won't happen. So I normally will sit down with the people that I'm working with at the beginning of the year and we actually make it something quite measurable. I get very specific with them about how much time are you going to allocate to this? What does it look like on a daily basis? How will we know if it's working? And it's evolving your plan, because things change. So having a coach or a mentor or a trusted advisor, someone that you can actually have a conversation with to say, hey, how's it going?
Because it feels like we know what we need to do. Like it feels like in 2019 when there's so many podcasts, so many books, it's become popular culture to know around meditation, around journaling, around sleep. Like you can go through the list of everything we need to be doing. So then I guess it becomes a question of prioritization or starting. What is the single thing that you've found that if people do this one thing, if they start with this one thing, it will then trickle down to the other things?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's having a plan. It's having a plan. I think most of us are going along to get along and we're being busy, and I can't tell you the impact of sitting down and actually writing a plan, working out what your commitments are daily, weekly, monthly, and evolving that. And it should be this living, breathing document that reflects the things that are most important to you. Success doesn't happen accidentally, and neither does happiness. So if we don't get quite deliberate about how we're going to look after ourselves around what success is going to mean for us, it actually won't happen. And just, on that point, Josh, about we kind of know. We do know, right? Like we've never had access to as much information and inspiration as we have right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm fascinated by that.
Eat more plants.
Yeah.
Like, is there anyone that doesn't know
Although
to
it
eat more
changes,
plants?
doesn't it?
Well, yeah,
like eat kale, drink milk, don't drink milk.
Yeah.
You know,
Fruit's not your
like,
problem.
yeah, that's right. But
Bread is cake.
why is it that we have so many mental health issues and we have so much unhappiness, and you know, we've got the World Health Organization talking about, you know, that burnout is a really significant factor that's costing us a lot of money now, and we haven't even seen the real consequences of that yet. So yeah, we do know what we're meant to be doing, but we're actually not doing it.
Is it because we don't know what the future holds? Like a part of me is like, I don't know, on like a more global scale, so global turmoil, if we see what happened with the banks or any industry, we're like, actually, we don't know if any of these things are going to exist. We don't know if this is like clients are going to exist. Does that mean that we exist? Like all of those
do
big
corporate structures exist? What does a freelance economy mean? You know, the stuff that as a mum of three, I'm quite interested in the things that my children are maybe going to study. Will that be a thing? Is that an industry? Is that a job that it will exist? The transferable skills that we need to learn now. I was reading an article about this recently, you know, that around, I'm sort of making up the number, it was 40 or 42% of the skills that we have now won't necessarily serve us in being successful in 5 years' time. And so, you know, there is all of this uncertainty and there's this really fast pace and there's lots and lots of change that's happening. But do you want to hear my prediction?
Yes, please.
Because clearly I would know.
Yeah.
I'm an expert in predictions.
Great.
Did you know?
Futurist.
Yeah.
Put it on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, hashtag futurist. Is I think that we're sitting right now in a place of saying we've actually got to get back to basics. You know, I actually think part of what we will be working with our clients over the next couple of years is going to be things like communication and having healthy relationships. You know, we've got so great at the way that we can access people all around the world in a really instant, immediate kind of way. But there's some things here that are kind of screaming out at us, like our environment.
Yeah.
You know, and if you look at the next generation of kids, like how great are they? You know, so
They also don't like calling, being on the phone.
No,
So that's one thing
which
we're
is
going to have to
valid.
work out.
Which is valid, I think.
But are we falling into the trap of treating ourselves like computers? So I guess we spend so much time within technology and you press a button and the thing does the thing. Is there, I guess, how do we deal with that within management, which is like it's actually us communicating, saying, hey, do this thing. It doesn't actually just sort of trigger all these things and the thing happens. You might get back, it's like the person hasn't done that thing. They get misinterpreted.
Yeah. And we're losing some stuff as part of that process, like trust.
Yeah.
You know, when we're having interactions and it's very mechanical or it's about a process, we're losing the experience and we're losing some of the learning. So, you know, one of my real passions at the moment is talking to people about where are they actually getting their learning from? Where are they getting their inspiration from? How many conversations have they had recently that have really triggered some different thinking for them? So I think, you know, if we look at AI and, you know, your head can hurt thinking about all of the change that's going to hit us in the next 5 years. You and I were having an embarrassing conversation a few minutes ago before we started recording about, you know, there was no schoolies when I finished school and there was also no mobile phones, you know, and so everything's happening really, really fast. But there's something really instinctive in me saying at some point, it's all going to break a bit and we're going to say we need to get back to caring deeply about our purpose and caring deeply about the environment that we live in and the connection piece with the people around us and the leaders that are making decisions about the world that we live in. You know, I mean, you mentioned the banks earlier, you know, integrity, and you can't get that from a machine.
Yeah. I guess connections, there is that idea too of connecting with one another, but also understanding ourselves. And sort of, it feels like, I don't know if it's because I'm a year off being 30, but there is that sense of like,
So old.
yeah, no, but you start asking those questions of who am I?
Who am I?
But also like the broader thing is like, how many of the things do I think are based on my previous experience and what I've been programmed based on culture? And so when all of that comes up in the air, where it's like, okay, the operating system in which I exist is in question, how do we reconcile our internal operating system to then be able to communicate better with others?
Is this early onset midlife crisis? Is that what's happening?
No, I think everyone's having their midlife crisis earlier.
Maybe.
I actually take some solace in the fact that everybody's struggling. Because I think about like me and my struggles, right? And then you got
everyone's fucked.
James, your young son, who's got his own struggles.
Yeah.
Should he have struggles? Maybe not. Maybe. Should I have struggles? Maybe. Maybe not.
We've all. I mean, you know. I spend my day sitting and talking with people. You know, that's what a coach does. Is we reflect back what we're hearing and we're asking questions and we're helping people to kind of work out what their thinking is and what their plan is. And oh, believe me, we've all got our stuff. Like there is nothing. I don't think there's too. You can take this as a challenge, but I don't think there's too much I haven't heard. You know, I think everyone's trying to find their way. There's not too many people you meet who go, I've got it sorted, and we probably wouldn't like them for it.
I mean, what's the cultural response when someone says, how you going? Yeah, good.
Yeah,
it's like that's right. Am I? Like, I don't know. Which one? So then you're making a split-second decision about what should I share with you based on I mean, I don't even think like that. I'm just like, I instantly
it's also
respond.
Gratitude. Like I think that part of it is because we're told that we need to feel like you need to feel good. You should be grateful. And so anything other than being good is dismissed. Like, because things are good. Like you can always change perspective in saying, you know, this specific thing isn't good, but I woke up today and everything,
Of course. But if we think about, you know, your point around the internal operating system that is us and the question of who am I, and, you know, it all kind of comes under this self-awareness piece, right? Like how self-aware are we? What is the experience that we create for the people around us? And I think and I have this conversation with clients often, you know, how many of your beliefs are yours? You know, like what the stuff that's in your head and the map that you use to navigate the world and the values that you have, where have they come from and how many of those have you consciously chosen? So, you know, your parents, your teachers, social media, there's a whole lot of things that play a role in determining what goes in here. But how often do we sit down and go, you know, as a mum to an 18-year-old who's just gone off to schoolies and you're having a conversation around, right, you know, what is it that I most want him to remember, to value, to understand, you know, to take away with him. And I wanted to be, you know, the parent that was wise and also cool. I wanted to be cool. I did not master that, but I tried. And, you know, you hear yourself saying the things that your parents said and you kind of go, well, hang on, is that how I want to parent?
Yeah.
And, you know, so if we're having about 60,000 thoughts a day, do you have more or less than that?
I have about 120.
Yeah,
120.
He's on overdrive.
Mostly about when you're going to have lunch and what time and where the lollies are.
Well, finding out what's free on Uber Eats, like delivery.
Stop it.
Because, you know, they do that. They have a whole carousel of what's free right now.
Can we get an update on the cost, how much money you've spent on Uber Eats recently?
No, but not as much as Brendan Favola, the Adam and Simon who we had on, was saying that he spent, how much? Was it 60?
Yeah, he's a top spender, 30.
60.
I remember reading something saying 30,000.
I think it's 30. It's 35.
35,000 in 6 months.
Yeah, something like that. So 60 grand a year.
Isn't great.
$35,000
on Uber Eats.
Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Is this like a thing?
Yeah.
A competition?
Well, it's not a competition.
No,
it's just living. It's called hunting and gathering.
Hang on.
It's called dinner.
What we call living.
It's called breakfast, lunch and dinner.
I come down when Josh has got some smelling food that smells amazing. I come down and say, what has the modern day man hunted and gathered today?
Yeah.
I had a chicken parma that seemed like it was like a proper pub meal. It looks great.
It came in a pizza box, bro.
Yeah. It was perfect.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It was really.
And I was envious.
Like I put it onto a plate.
Can we just
Yeah,
go?
back up, yeah.
What was the point of the Uber Eats conversation.
No, how much I think about, like what I'm thinking
What you're
about,
gonna
and so
get for
what it's
free.
going. So in the Uber Eats app, there's a
120.
section. Yeah, there's a section that says like free delivery right now, and you get 4 minutes, and you have to order that thing in 4 minutes, and then it resets.
It's gamified it. It's a complete.
Yeah,
So-
I didn't know about this, and I must say I'm not. You're actually even going to get
So
it.
here, I'll
up
show
now
you.
for us
So
to
I
look
can
at.
tell you what we can get right
This
now.
is going to be my learning today.
Yeah.
You know how we talk about
You
how
gotta
we should
learn.
proactively be
Some
looking
learnings
things to
are
learn.
bullshit, others are worthy. But
And
you
so
decide. Okay.
If we have a look here, okay, no, I won't.
Okay.
So free delivery promotion right now. We have 4 minutes and 53 seconds to order either On It Burger, Big Al's fried chicken. Not many options
Yeah.
for $10.40. And so then,
Bargain.
I'm sort
Yeah.
of, I'll leave it if I start at about 11 or whenever we finish this, I'll start refreshing.
Right.
And when it gets to something, it feels like a meal. Because these fried
quite pathetic,
chicken,
isn't it?
fried
Tommy,
chicken and burgers don't feel like a.
Josh.
I'm starting.
Yeah.
Do you see it as pathetic?
No, I said it's. I need to
like-
eat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's a
thing
practical thing.
One
That's
thing
the
that
real thing.
I am wanting to get into, which I mentioned already, is on a previous episode, is do you freeze much food? Do you do that?
Not a lot, no.
And
Sometimes.
so I've never been much of a person to freeze food. But I saw a great recipe, which is like frozen breakfast burritos. So you make them in bulk, you put them in foil, and then you get a
This
sandwich
is
press.
life-changing stuff.
Yeah, a sandwich
really.
press.
Yeah.
And then you cook it with that. And because I have a theory that potentially some of these places where I get my burritos from, I have a feeling they're probably just doing that exact thing. And
Oh,
so-
you're eating
Nah,
frozen
no,
burritos?
they're fresh. They're definitely fresh.
Well,
They map it out with the ingredients. You can have the mix for the burrito. It
Yeah,
lasts
sure.
across a couple of days, but they're not
They could be
freezing them.
frozen.
So let's look at the
anyway,
belief things. So what about
So thoughts, 60,000 thoughts.
I'm
Yeah.
actually, you may be having 100, not 120.
Okay.
But so on this, Tommy, if we think about the example that we've just seen firsthand, we're having about 60,000 thoughts today. And the research tells us that 95% of those thoughts are habitual. I know, contain yourself.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say about
Right.
food.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, it may actually be higher for Josh.
yeah,
We might be hitting the 99% mark.
Yeah.
But in the context of this conversation, and even your Uber Eats example,
yeah.
what we do is we get up most days and we think the same things and we do the same things. We're actually really, really habitual. And so when we think about talent and high performance and, hashtag living my best life, this is actually where the opportunity is. How often do we have brand new thinking and how often do we deliberately create opportunities for ourselves when we can, what would be living on the edge for you today? Would it be not ordering Uber Eats or ordering from a different place?
To be honest, it would be going to the plate because sometimes I'll
Right.
Uber Eats when it's like 600 meters.
On a burger, 30%
Yeah,
off
yeah.
through my app.
and I can just walk down. So I think going
That
into
would
the
be,
place,
amazing experience.
potentially eating in or whatever, but it's just definitely not.
So you're going. So is the goal to consciously break the habit? So it could be, I'll go to a new cafe this morning.
Yeah,
That's just-
and have a conversation with a different person,
Yeah.
or it can be, we've all heard the story, try and write with a different hand, or do you know you even shower in the same way? Now, I don't want to know what you boys do.
Oh,
in
yeah,
shower
I've started
specifically.
doing cold showers the last 2 days, and
Great.
I connected it with the breathing technique that we learnt off our friends Matt and Nat, which is.
Don't do that in the shower, you idiot.
So I have the cold. No, because it's like the Wim Hof thing. Like I'm combining.
No, but you
the
don't
cold,
do it in the cold standing up. If you pass out, you're going to smash your head. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, I did it.
Wim Hof's lying down, dude. You lie down.
Well, so I did it, and it felt because I couldn't feel.
Very direct feedback.
I'm worried. I'm worried.
No, well, I did it
This
the
big
last 2
Gronk
days.
falling over, banging his head, and then the podcast can't go on.
No, but I'm actually.
What a way to go. We missed
way
one
to go.
episode,
What a way
and it's
to go.
because
Because of the breathing techniques.
hero over here was Wim Hof in the standing
That'd
up.
definitely get you airtime. People would be
exactly.
interested in that story, how Josh went out.
But it's
Live
so
from the EA room.
So I just
Emergency department. ER?
ER.
yeah, there you go. Emergency room.
Different
We
to an
would- we
ER.
actually would
Yeah.
do
Did
that.
you watch ER
We would.
back
You
in the
would
day?
do that.
ER, did you watch that
Oh, a
show?
little bit.
All
Is that
Saints?
George?
Do you remember
George
All Saints?
Clooney?
George, I still hold
George
it.
Clooney, did you say?
No, what was he in?
Yeah, he was in here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Mr. 97.
Do you reckon
nice.
George has got better looking
Yes.
with age?
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you pull that one off? I mean, it's better than deteriorate.
Would you
espresso.
say yes to George?
Yeah.
I'd kiss George.
Yeah.
Would you turn for George?
Yeah, you definitely
I'd have a
would.
coffee and a kiss.
Part of it's a coffee and a kiss.
Would you,
Espresso and a
would
cup.
you order Uber Eats with George?
Yeah,
Josh,
definitely.
would that? Would
yeah,
you do
I
that?
think he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, does he?
That's all.
What do you
And
base
he's
that
married.
on? What do you base that
Oh,
on?
but nothing really.
Nothing.
But
he's
do you know who
he's a
is
very
nice?
humanitarian.
person.
He's a humanitarian.
He is.
And he's a
He does
humanitarian.
good stuff.
Do you know
yeah.
who is actually a really nice guy? Tom Hanks.
Oh.
I went down a rabbit hole of watching. There was a New York Times article, and then I watched all these YouTube videos of him
Yes.
just in interviews.
Did you see the one where the woman was getting married in, I think it was in
Yeah.
Central Park in New
yeah.
York, and he stopped and took photos and
yeah.
congratulated her?
And when
Oh,
he's got a
Tom.
rule, anytime there's a phone, he sees someone's phone, he picks it up and does a selfie.
Aw.
That's
Isn't that such a
great.
good
I've
idea?
seen that.
It doesn't
Do-
have as much
do you do that with
cut-through.
people as
Well, this
well?
is the thing. It doesn't have as much cut through if you're not Tom Hanks.
Yeah, that's right.
Me
Slightly
doing it,
different
I'm just
thing.
annoying.
It actually makes you a stalker. yeah.
I'd be happy with Tom.
Yeah.
He, you know how he played Sully, who's the guy who landed the plane on the Hudson
Yes.
River.
The pilot, yeah.
The pilot. So the real Sully was. I saw him talking about something. A guy came up to him and said, "Mate, I didn't really like you in that movie." Like he was talking to Sully,
Thinking
the
that
real
he
guy,
was in the
thinking
movie.
it
like it was him in
It's
the
very confusing. Where do you even read that?
Scoopler.
Scoopler.
all
Yeah.
over it. All over it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think what we're taking from this conversation
Yes.
is really a learning lesson for you today, Josh,
Yeah.
about we need to get you creating some new experiences for yourself.
No, I agree.
That's your challenge.
Yeah. What's one that you've recently done that you've seen had huge impact?
What's one that I've seen recently? I see them all the time because this is what coaching people is. It's I actually had a conversation with someone this morning where I said, you know, if you were going to be brave, you know, what would be the scariest thing that you could do for yourself? And her response to that was to get strong and healthy. And I was like, wow, why is it brave to be strong and healthy? You know, tell me about that. I got a message from someone on the way here who has been wanting to write a book for 10 years. And to say that out loud and make a commitment, you know, requires a mindset and some accountability. But it can be really small things as well. You know, it can be sitting in, you know, Qantas Club, not getting your laptop out and looking like you're open to conversation. Actually, that could be a different thing. Let me retract that. But
what I'm fascinated is by beliefs that are shifting. So I'm thinking for myself, like I think about when I was a stripper and I'd just come off the back when I met you of doing
I was
that
going
kind
to
of
say,
stuff.
can we all be really clear? I did not meet Tommy when he was a
same.
stripper.
It was actually at a self-development weekend away with Craig Harper.
It was.
So,
he hires strippers for the-
No, so it was for the
The
past, but
weekend
it's
away.
like what I was thinking about. It's probably hard. It's kind of hard to take stock of your shifting beliefs, but one thing that I've shifted is the thinking about people in that space, and it's purely based on my experience being in that. So being in the adult industry, in the stripping
Judgment?
I mean, I guess we're all looking at it, basing it on our past experiences. But I'm like, how positive is that? And what's even if you find a good outcome being in that space, it's still not even that great. And so I'm just trying to work out my thinking around that. And, you know, people doing that shit now is so different to what I had when I was doing it. You know, made it all make sense for me.
This is actually why change is really hard. Like at the fundamental basic level, change is hard is because we have these random thoughts. When we have a thought 6 times, it becomes a belief and our brain creates that pathway, right? And then the job of our brain is to make those beliefs right. So we're looking for evidence to make ourselves right all the time. So, you know, I have conversations with clients where I'll say, you know, when was the last time you sat down and wrote out what are the beliefs I have that no longer serve me? You know, what are the beliefs I have that are going to support me in being amazeballs next year? What are the beliefs I have that I actually am not even sure I agree with anymore? So, you know, we spring clean our house, we get a personal trainer to improve our body, we see nutritionists to make sure that we're eating good food. But what's our commitment to cleaning out our brain and making sure that our brain is really healthy? And, you know, the research tells us that currently we're having the 60,000 thoughts. About 95% of them are habitual, and about 80% of those thoughts are negative. Like, let's just all be quite depressed about that. So what that means is we're boring, habitual, and negative.
It's my new Instagram bio.
That's right. But this is, you know, for me as a coach, this is what potential is. You know, there's so much for us to still learn and evolve. And can you think about a time or give me an example when you had a brand new thought for the first time? Like, when did you last have a brand new thought and go, oh?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was watching that Game Changers doco and then going vegetarian. But that was, I had that thought, and then 4 weeks later, I'm like, it was, what I realized.
So did you become vegetarian?
Yeah, for 4 weeks.
Right.
And so then I was like, so
I
I was challenged.
Becoming a vegetarian.
Well, yeah, I was. I tried it. I tried it for a bit. But it was one of those ones where it's like, I'm going to challenge this, trying to be detached of my the way that I was previously doing
what you
it.
did before. Yep.
But the thing is that it's what Tommy and I were talking about is it's not cancelling out that thing isn't actually addressing the thing. And so I guess that's one of the, especially for people who have that sort of like disordered eating or whatever, as Harps talks about.
Yeah.
These all become like, these are all different versions of that.
Yeah.
They're all at their core obsession around how you eat and what you're eating.
And the feelings that we associate with that.
Yeah.
And
even if we do think we had a new thought, is it though? You know, like Josh, you came in this morning, you'd been listening to something that had sparked something. And
it resurfaced existing ideas and being able to reframe it or have clarity on it or inspire it. Because I guess it's that whole like knowing isn't doing, and we always constantly have these thoughts around, I think it's this or that, and then it's only when you have a conversation with someone and then there's maybe a misinterpretation where you're like, oh, mate, I'm not being clear. I'm not actually doing the thing that I think that I'm doing.
Yes.
Or we need to do a better job of communicating what we believe and what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of counter information on everything. So it's, if we're looking at these things as truths, there's a multiple. And so you take example in motivational quotes. So, build it and they will come, or something like that, or the harder you work, the luckier you get. Are these true? Maybe for some they really resonate, and so that's why when you find a quote that resonates, you're like, oh fuck, that knows me.
It just
gets me.
Could have written it myself. In fact, wish I did.
Well, should we? Let's dissect let's find an opposite of a motivational quote. What's one that you like, and then let's see if there is another side and explore that. Have you got one that comes to mind?
One that I really like at the moment is, you've got everything you need, but it will take everything you've got.
You've got everything you need.
Okay. So deconstruct. Wrong.
Take it.
I don't have Uber Eats in front of me right now.
You got everything.
Subjective, having that you've got everything you need.
Well, you know how you said sometimes you read something and it really talks to you, right?
Yeah.
And you go, oh yeah, you've got me. You've got me.
Here's a reframe. You don't have everything you need, and that's okay.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, so it's a detachment of, I don't have all the answers.
Hang on, you're ruining my favourite quote. Hang on, can we choose a different one?
Well, I think you can do that with anything, right? I even think about like, the grass is always greener on the other side. Right? I have an issue with that quote because what it's setting up, it's sort of what you were talking before, TJ, about knowing that everyone else is fucked and being okay with that. And the problem I have with the grass is always greener on the other side is it's predicated on the idea that everyone else is going through shit, and that is what should make me happy, feel better.
Yeah, that's not cool.
I mean, my thinking is the opposite of the grass is always green on the other side. The guy over the side fence, he's got his shit too.
Yeah.
So
that
even
is
what
the
you
grass
see,
is.
Yeah, but the grass is always green on the other side is that it's all looking rosy and it's like it looks good. So you're seeing into the other fence. Like if you jump up on the fence, it's green. He's watering it, but he's severely depressed.
Yeah. But the thing is, maybe I get like one of the reframing that I do
you
is
should
like
check on him, by the way.
I am.
Well, maybe they're
catching up tonight.
maybe their grass is green because they're watering it and they need to do exactly what they need to do, and so all we have is what we can do, and the inner work that that's available to us.
And yeah, I guess it's not always greener either, right? And also people can make things look a particular way to us. And I think, also what I'm hearing, Tommy, is it's really hard to have an original thought. Like it's really hard to come up with something that's just yours, because we do collect and I actually think that's awesome. I think we should steal stuff and we should note the things that we see and hear other people do. When we hear a quote that we love, I think it's great to put your own spin on it.
Yeah. Unless you're a Melbourne-based children's book writer, then on the back cover it said, I've got 99 problems, but my ABC ain't one. And they got sued by Jay-Z just recently.
Oh, really?
Oh,
That's
really?
annoying.
Don't steal Jay-Z's shit. If you're going to steal
don't.
anyone,
That could
not
be costly.
Jay-Z. It was steal mine,
Yes.
Josh's, Lisa's.
Yeah, mine.
No, but in the video space, I've seen people doing carbon copy style videos of other ones I've seen. It's like they're just identical and they work. And you could easily be like, this uncreative, like shit kickers just ripped off somebody. But then the other way is, it's actually, it's a tested method and it works and you can inject your own personality. And so,
and if they did the work, right, they had to go and hire the camera or film or write the script or study it, like there's something about doing the work yourself.
And so there's effort that they've put in that, this is just like keyboard, like sitting behind a keyboard. It's so easy to
It's also the projection of projecting our own feelings around like, what are you doing differently? Then it comes down to identity. But everyone, like if you think about it, you need to, before you can actually create your own style, you need to pick up, like if you think about, like I think about all the videos I made as a kid, they were all parodies. It was all like all Aussie Adventures, the panel, recreating all of this stuff with the idea of like, okay, you emulate and then you like get going and then you find your own thing. Like why recreate the wheel from scratch? Like I think that's almost even more destructive.
We take inspiration from the stuff around us that, that resonates or that we think we can learn from or that we just like. If you think about leaders, people that you work with, we also learn so much from people who are arses. Like we really do. Like I think we have this negative kind of vibe that we can put around stuff that's hard and people that are really difficult. And I was having a conversation with someone recently about someone that they're working for who is a tosser, like actually a true blue tosser. Factual tosser. There's plenty of evidence.
It's on their LinkedIn. It's actually on
their profile. And, you were saying earlier, we can always frame stuff up. But I said there's actually something really powerful about you knowing you won't be a tosser going forward. Like you're learning what that feels like on the other side. And it's when we stop and think about, I will never do that to someone else, or I'm going to be really aware that I never want someone to feel that way when they're around me. We learn a lot from that stuff and it can get lost in all the noise.
You can choose for something to serve you or not to serve you. And if we've got all these things happening in life, defaulting to using it as a way of serving, I guess, makes sense.
You mentioned sort of the high performers you deal with.
I don't deal with them. I work with them. That sounds slightly
help,
terrifying.
Assist, nurture,
support,
educate.
Yes,
love.
Better.
Maybe not love. Are hard on themselves. I think about us, and we're in the midst of doing a lot.
There's a couple of high performers.
I think we're trying to be high performers in the space of this.
So yourself.
Well, I think we couldn't we couldn't do this if we weren't trying to perform at a high level. Yeah. And so then there's also a moment where you are in it and you're like, I'm not doing enough. And I could imagine you felt like that. You're a high performer.
Oh, yeah, totally. Rocking it, clearly. Can I give you some feedback?
Yeah.
Yeah, to both of you, actually. So
is it my shorts?
So actually, I did want to talk about that. They're quite short.
It's because I'm sitting down. I stand up.
Maybe we'll talk about that privately. But the thing that I think you're doing really, really well is the consistent work. So people want success really quickly. And we see so many examples of people who become successful and build profile overnight because something happens. And I'm really invested in your journey, and I care a lot about you guys doing well. And, I've the coffee thing and the 7-Eleven and, I see you trying lots of different things. And the thing that you're doing really, really well is the work and the consistent work. It takes commitment and resilience to get up every single day and go out there and do stuff. There has to be thoughtfulness. You've had to invest the money. You've had to, build the studio. You have to be good enough and interesting enough that people actually want to come and have a conversation with you and give their time, So there's a whole lot of stuff that sits around it, but it's the being prepared to do the work that I really admire about what you're doing. It's 7 days a week, right?
Yeah.
And that is a conversation that I have with people a lot. People will say, oh, I'd love to write a book. And I'd go, okay, so do you have this much money and do you have, 9 to 12 weeks where you can sit down every single day and write? Oh, or we want to have an amazing body. Well, are you prepared to stop drinking alcohol for a period of time and actually consistently change how you think about exercise? And, well, maybe next year I'm prepared to do that, So you guys get up every day and do your thing. And I want to recognise that because
thank you.
That's a big contributor.
It's interesting because it doesn't because that consistency is what you need to do. I think the interesting thing that we're discovering, it's still not necessarily the answer. Like there's a bunch of things, but you just still need to keep doing it.
Yep.
It's like, I think that we said like, once we get to 100 eps, 200 eps, 300 eps, 400 eps, 500 eps, all these things will happen. And I guess that it's beyond the consistency, it's the learning of the detachment of outcome. Like we believe in what we're doing. We believe in the mission.
Yeah.
And we believe the same thing around consistency. And so we can only execute on our beliefs with the hope that it resonates with other people.
And being, really aware of what success will mean for you, in terms of how many people you have listening and following and it counts that you're having a good time, know?
Well, I think we've used that as the metric more so than anything.
When I hear people talk about you guys, I'm actually having my my front yard paved at the moment. And I told the guys I was coming to chat with you and they were like, oh, Tommy and Josh, we listened to them.
What?
And I was like, oh my God, people actually listen to you.
Great.
Josh got heckled down the street.
We had someone say, love your podcast. It wasn't a heckle. It was a compliment.
That's a nice one.
But it did catch me off guard.
Oh.
But it is very,
Do
it
you
is
get
very
negativity? Because you're so approachable and warm and there's not a lot of judgment that you do on the show.
Probably like misunderstanding. I mean, the thing is that like we're negative internally about the shit that sometimes we say or do. And so it makes sense that other people feel the same way. The thing that we trigger ourselves in of like the old version of ourselves that we're not proud of, if we have moments like that, it's like, there's going to be people who are way more refined than us who see the exact same things that we see. And so I think framing it that way, it makes the negative stuff way more palatable because we sort of empathize and understand where those people are coming from.
And also when part of your philosophy, you send a little email out to people before they come and talk to you, which basically says, we don't edit our show.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's pretty rare. It's unless you're doing live TV or live radio, everything else is pretty sanitized.
Yeah.
I think we pretend it's not.
Yeah.
But it actually, we're pretty careful about what we say. We're pretty politically correct. And so to have a show that's not edited, I would imagine that there are times when people have a different view, but that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like tension is actually something we do need in business.
Yeah.
Without tension, we don't actually have growth. We don't have conversations. So as long as it's not about deliberately offending someone, then, that's actually really healthy.
Well, I think, if you're wanting to be a better communicator, just creating something like this where you can't edit it is powerful because you learn that it's almost like your mind's racing fast, but you end up catching up with it to be in time with it, so you're not saying shit that you wouldn't really want to say a second later. You're like, ugh. And it is confronting, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Did it give you a little
of not having
seeing the not edited thing? Like, were you someone that...
Well, I think I appreciated it. Like it it told me immediately about what your expectations are. And one of the things that's really important for business is setting culture, and culture is not just about your internal people. You know, you guys have very specific culture. Mr. 97 sitting over there, and your jumpers, and it's weird, by the way, when my children all wear our jumpers on the same day. But
you need to show an awkward family photo.
Christmas photo.
That's right. You know, so there's a cultural piece that's really important, and every time you send out, whether it's an email, a calendar invite, you have a phone call with someone, you are creating an experience for that person of your business.
Yeah.
And so I'm really fascinated by that. So I read the wording in your email quite carefully. It was this morning, but I did read it. And, you know, it made me proud, and I think it's quite courageous, because there would be people who wouldn't be prepared to do this. They're not prepared to not sort of have that opportunity for right of reply and editing. So, but that's part of your brand, right? And
if we're living in an authentic age, this is the opportunity to be authentic.
And we've got nothing to lose as well. We don't own anything. So.
no one can sue you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
take us for the sign.
Take anything, but don't take Bodhi's bike.
Don't take Bodhi. And, you know, you're right to free Uber Eats or free delivery.
free delivery
of your Uber Eats.
You can't use that. If you lose everything, it's a credit card. You can't have a credit card.
How cute is your Bodhi, by the way?
Oh, he's great.
He's getting big now, isn't he?
He's a big boy.
I was listening to the podcast where he told you had bad breath. Is that what it was? Yeah. That's attractive.
Truth bombs.
Yeah, the truth bombs.
Truth hurts.
Yeah.
How do you experience or deal with personal growth and then implementing it within a business? So say if you have an aha moment and you've been running a certain way with a bunch of employees and contractors.
Yeah.
How do you then sit down and realign?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question, because I think there's a simple answer, which is I actually tell people. So I do a lot of speaking, and sometimes you smash it and go, look at me go, like totally rocking it and owning it. And other times you get nothing and go, oh, just get me out of here immediately. And I will actually tell people. So I have told audiences and said, you know, so I've spent a lot of time in the corporate world, and, you know, I'm stepping out, I guess, and wanting to share more of my story, and that's feeling a bit different for me. And so I'm going to be using some different language today, and I'm actually going to be sharing some stuff that I haven't shared before. And people really respond to that. People respond to the humility of, I'm in this with you and I'm trying new things and I'm learning different things. And you know, I had a public workshop that I did that, you know, I thought would sell out really quickly because clearly I am amazing, and, you know, and it didn't. And you sort of go, oh, what happened there? And I remember putting up an Instagram post saying, so, you know, a lot of my work is with private clients. I've got this idea to do this public workshop. No one actually registered. What's happening? And, you know, people, that was what actually had people book in, and it, you know, filled literally within an hour.
Yeah.
Because people responded not to the schmick me saying, hey, I've got these strategies I want to share around success. People responded to the truth.
I like it because, I mean, that's it's a reaction or a natural response to something happening that's very authentic versus using it as a strategy.
Yeah.
I know you're very strategic. You got a marketing background. I feel like that's probably not coming from a place of like, this is how I'm going to do it.
No.
I'm actually just being honest now.
Yes, yeah.
And then it works.
What's the
Yes.
asking for help thing, right?
Yes.
Like, so in the moment you created this thing and there's like a little bit of not embarrassment, but a reflection of like, I read the room wrong
Yes.
around what this is,
Yes.
or I haven't communicated this
Yes.
well. And so the ability to then say, hey, I read the room wrong. How about if I frame it this way?
Yeah. And there's a real skill in doing that in the moment as well.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not sure I made a great choice coming on here this morning. No, I'm joking. But, you know, having being brave enough and self-aware enough in the moment to say, I don't feel like this is going well.
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to do differently? And I do that, you know, with audiences and in workshops. I'll go, the room's really quiet. Can I check in on what that is? Am I boring, or are you just reflecting, or what, you know, what's happening? And people do get that. The other strategy I use is I tell people that they have to laugh at my jokes, and I find that works. So you just laughed, yeah. Tell people what your expectations are, you know, and how you're doing.
We should do that at the start of every show.
Yeah, tell people to clap loudly and
Well, I mean, we haven't expected people to laugh, and then we found people laugh at our show.
Whether it's at the bits we want them to laugh at.
Yeah, they're laughing at us. This is bullshit.
Your book, Read Me First.
Yes.
The my favourite shop in the world is Milligram in Doncaster, and I always see it there, and I'm always like,
they do a great job. Yeah,
I know, Lisa.
Personally, we go way back, way back, you and I.
But yeah, it's you're working on a new book. What's the learnings from doing one to having a second crack?
Oh, yeah, lots. I actually met with my publisher yesterday, Leslie.
Shout out to Leslie.
Shout out to Leslie. Her and I were having a conversation about how I really had no idea.
Yeah.
You know, I had no idea. And actually writing is not kind of something that I've always been particularly good at, or that was part of writing the book, was I wanted to do something that would really challenge me and that I would learn some new stuff from. And boy, did I learn some stuff. Like there's a whole lot of things that, you know, I want to do better and differently. Starting out, you know, from the very beginning. So for the next one, I'm allowing a lot more time, and I've been working with a researcher because I want to find out and really test my thinking around some of the things that I want to write about. And it's actually really confronting, you know, to write a book, because there's the book that's out currently has a bit of my personal story in it. And I had this moment, I remember before the book launch, Tommy, which you came to, where my work as a coach is about serving others. And so I spend my day listening to what's happening with other people and what's, you know, asking them questions about them and working on their life plan. And then suddenly you kind of have this book that's got all of the stuff that's in your mind and the things that are really important to you, the strategies that you want to share. And it's a bit like putting your soul into some paper. And everyone says, you know, you'll get trolled, you'll get book reviews, you'll have people say really awful things, and, you know, you get all of the positive, amazing stuff as well. But it's been a real ride. It's been a massive learning curve, actually.
What sort of person is trolling a book? Like a book requires like a bunch more effort, right?
Yeah.
It feels like, say you do an Instagram post or a tweet, very easy. Takes an extra level of a troll to go to the effort of reading. And
I've
then
had some interesting ones, actually. Yeah. I had, and of course you don't really know who it is. So it was a man's name, but who knows who it was. But I had one recently, and he went across all of my social media, including LinkedIn, and wrote some really awful things about how women like me shouldn't be allowed to just write books. And
you obviously triggered something.
And I was like,
trigger warning.
Could we perhaps have a conversation about that? You know, and in the book I write about, this actually makes me even uncomfortable to even talk about this, actually. I don't like how this played out, but
we can't edit it.
We can't edit it. So filterly. No, not filtering. But in the book I write about how I went and lived in Italy for 3 months with my children. And that's actually something I'm really proud of. And I don't mean for that to sound ego-based. It took work and effort, and it was something that really mattered to me. So as a mum who'd sort of done divorce and found myself with sole custody of these 3 small children, I very quickly had to establish a business and a career that would sustain the 4 of us and work really, really hard. And one of the goals that I'd set for myself was that I'd always wanted to travel with them and just go and immerse ourselves somewhere, and we chose Italy. Now, I still worked when I was there, you know, because I'm fortunate that I can coach clients from anywhere in the world. We saved. It was not particularly expensive, actually, is the truth. Like, if the economy in Italy allows for you to email Airbnbs and hotels, we went in the off season, and, you know, it required a plan, and it felt kind of brave to go with 3 young children by myself to a non-English speaking country. And something blew up on social media that started with a particular woman writing about the arrogance of that. and how could I possibly understand what it's really like to struggle and to be a woman. And it was hard.
It's almost shaming or guilt around success.
Yeah.
But it's also but also like we don't know. Like we had people comment. We had a friend of ours, Matt Diavella, created a video about our journey, and people would say they must be trust fund kids doing like how do they have the time and the resources to be able to do it, which is always rich when you're having conversations around clients and leads and making money and trying to do it. And so like
and mate, I'd be on a boat in Italy. Like I'd be in the Mediterranean if I was a trust fund kid.
Exactly.
That's what you'd be doing.
Yeah. And so I think that's interesting too, but I guess it's the limiting beliefs of the people that they've put on themselves around what they can do and their ability to be resourceful. I guess it's doing things can sometimes trigger in other people what they're not doing.
Yeah.
Which is uncomfortable.
It can be confronting. And, I guess my whole point was that most things are possible if we're prepared to do the work and if we make a plan. And it took a couple of years of saving and, all of that. The other thing that I've really learnt about from being the author of a book is that people actually love to have conversations about what they're working on themselves. And people are really fascinated by success, and it's actually this thing that's quite hard to achieve, not because it's big, but because we often don't really know. We just don't really know. People can set goals for themselves and get there and go, why don't I feel amazing? Why don't I feel successful? Success is so personal. And, for me, the purpose of writing the book was when you find yourself in a position going, so I don't have a home and I've now got these 3 children and, if I was going to be brave, if I was going to do what I always really wanted to do, what would that be? And it was creating my consulting business, that's what it was. And so, I'm in this with you guys, we're being entrepreneurial, we're making a lot of compromises to do what we do actually. It takes a lot of hard work and there's things that we miss out on but there's also so much great stuff. The people that I've met because of the book and the learning that I've had, has been a bit unexpected, because people will come and share with me the things that they've most learned about themselves or that they've learned. I'm actually going to do something write about this over the next week. And you never know what's going to resonate with people. Like people will pull something out of the book, a particular question or that it might not even be top of mind for me. So
that I relate to that a lot just based on what we do, which is like we're always surprised at what resonates.
Yeah.
And so there is a bit of detachment in that, which is like sometimes when a show feels shit, it's people's favourite shows. And so having that in the back of our mind, I guess, allows us to be braver in just having a crack and showing up and doing it.
Yeah. Speaking our truth.
Yeah.
I think there's something happening in the world at the moment about we're responding to people who speak their truth. And also we are responding to people who want other people to be successful, which is not traditionally Australian culture, actually. The whole tall poppy and don't get too big for your boots and, it's really interesting the experience I have when I'm speaking in America compared to Australia is fascinating. Like in America, you're expected to talk about how great you are. And you're expected to walk on and be laughing at your own jokes and, which I'm actually good at. I'm high performing at laughing at my own jokes. But I think there is a bit of a shift happening in Australia at the moment where we want people to succeed and we're starting to have different conversations with people about that, which fills my heart with joy, actually.
How do you feel about the definition of success? And how does that play a part in what you do every day?
Yeah. I think the way I think about this is that there actually isn't a definition. Like if you Google or search, what success means, there's a whole lot of standard things that will come up. My version of success could be fitting in, a 15-minute walk each morning and yours is running a marathon, clearly in your shorty shorts. And success can be about knowing I can pay my bills and that my children have got what they need, or it might be something that's really different to that. You know, success is being able to go on that type of holiday. And what I know is that success is not about the stuff. You know, I think my prediction, the futurist in me, says
That's a good title of
yeah,
the futurist
I
in
quite
me.
like, actually,
That's
maybe
great.
that's my next book
Yeah.
title. That could be a good book title. Was Leslie listening to that?
Write it down, Leslie.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is that people are going to get clearer about success being about experiences and the people that we have around us and the learning that we have and the exposure that we have to the world that we live in. It's going to be, we're always going, well, lots of people will always want a nice fancy house and, you know, a car to drive. But I think we're starting to get far more meaningful. Do you guys talk about purpose? Have you talked about purpose lately?
Justin Bieber's album.
That's good. It's a good one.
Exactly what I was
Purpose
referring
Tour.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
think
covered
it's-
it in length.
No, I think it's funny because it's built in. It's probably one of those things that we don't talk enough about. It feels like it's built in. And that was part of the thing before you got here that we were talking about, which is like being more deliberate in talking about our purpose, which our purpose is to create connection in a world that is feeling disconnected and with the future of work being remote and people not having consistency. We're something that every single day you can listen to, and it's a consistent thing, and it means that you're not limited by geography. You're not limited by your situation. You can tune in. I don't think we've necessarily done a great job of externally communicating that's what our purpose is.
So what would that be in one sentence?
I think it's around creating connection for, you know, the future of work. Like, because I think that's like, because everyone's got work, everyone because work, people tie in with purpose.
Yep.
And everyone's got on their own mission of things to do.
Yep.
And for us, it's also, I guess, the other thing around, you know, we talk about the over optimization that we're all doing. And so there's a lot of podcasts that are strictly optimize, and then you have entertainment. And I guess what we're saying is that friendship, sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, sometimes you're serious, you know, sometimes you just want to relax. And so we're trying to give people that whole scope of connection.
Awesome.
Rather than, I know if I'm listening to these guys that it's going to be about optimize. And so, I mean, we need to dial in our one sentence.
In the early days, our purpose was to scale our friendship, which sounds, you know, quite tech terms, entrepreneurial view on friendship. But it's like, how do we take this and how do we share it with the world?
Yeah.
And so the purpose was that. And then, you know, I think being able to articulate how, you know, what you just did, Josh, has come a lot of episodes in.
Yeah.
But
it's still evolving, I think, by the sounds of
Yeah.
it. And that was beautiful to listen to, by the way. Like I think the word purpose, I don't know, we might need to find something else. Like it's a bit of a wanky word, but the meaning is important, you know, and why we get up to do what we do, and the way that you talk about creating connection with people in a world that's actually pretty disconnected, you know, there's a need for that. There is a need for that. And doing it with the warmth in which you do it is awesome. But I think this is a good trigger, hopefully, for everyone to kind of think about, what is it that I get up in the morning to do? And that's not necessarily about others, but what is it that feeds my soul? What's going to drive me? What's going to make me want to do this even when it's really hard?
Yeah.
Because there must be days where you go, I've got nothing.
Yeah.
I've actually got nothing.
Yeah.
I'm kind
we
of
don't.
tired. And, you know, and days where you're not feeling well, or, you know, Bodhi's been awake during the night, or you had too much wine or too many lollies, or, you know.
That's the guy he is.
Yes, yeah. So, you know, that happens. So what is it that's going to sustain me when it's hard? Well, I'm going to think about the connection, and that there's people out there who are waiting to hear that today.
I guess that's the same thing of like, whether it's like going to the gym, like all these things aren't easy, But then when you're in it, like when we're in it, the momentum or the feeling, we can change. Like actually showing up, turning on the microphone, we can change. I guess it's almost like a meditation in some ways. Shit can be all happening or whatever, but we can express, have some fun. There is a level of, it's this balance between authenticity and performance, and we are doing a performance as well in regards to like a friendship. What does my friend need right now? And we're performing in that way.
Yeah.
And so I guess the great thing, the consistency is that thing doesn't change in regards to what the audience needs. I guess it's probably similar to being a parent. You can have shit happening and all that sort of thing, but you have to perform as a parent, whether, businesses, regardless of anything.
Yeah. I find that, when I'm coaching, there's times when, you're tired and it takes an extraordinary amount of energy to be present, doesn't it? Like whilst we're having a good time, are we having a good time?
Oh, good time.
Yeah. Whilst we're having a good time and, it's a great conversation, it takes energy to be present. And when we're mostly running on empty and lots of people are feeling tired, and also we're getting into the end of the year, that can feel harder. And so how do we get our energy back? Like how do we refuel? And so I love what you're saying about, just turning on the mic and, when I turn up and I'm with that coaching client and we're sitting in the room, there is a formula, there is a purpose. And once you get started, it's a privilege, right?
Yeah.
It's a privilege to do the stuff that we get to do. Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the personal privilege or the
sold.
No, I'm saying the personal benefit is that actually sometimes I feel so much better once we've done the show. As in like it's brought an energy, and so that's a selfish privilege. But then I know that also on the other side can help somebody.
Yeah.
Someone can enjoy the conversation. Someone might have been feeling like me, and then they listen, they got distracted from the thing that they've been worrying about. They're like, I don't even care anymore about that.
Yeah.
It's also like resistance in life. Like I feel like there's constant resistance. Like I think about like doing the washing. I always feel good when I've done the washing, but the resistance of doing the washing
the most hilarious
is really
example.
hard.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm like, I've put the final sock on the clothes hanger or whatever. I'm like, what's a clothes horse? That's what I call it.
Doesn't even know what it is.
I know, it's just, I use it every day, but I don't know the terms. But yeah, it's those things. So that you push back, like I'm sort of leaning into that more, which is like, I actually feel good. Like for some of these resistances, we don't even test. We don't even like, well, why am I resisting this? This is easy. It's like admin. I'm constantly like putting off admin things. And then it's like, but then the thing is that like clearing your inbox actually feels good.
Feels great. Yeah.
And so it's almost like trying to work out what to do with the resistance.
Yeah.
And is the resistance serving us?
Yeah.
And why are we, why does it,
If our strengths are the things we gravitate to do, is it, so the weaknesses are the areas that offer up resistance? I mean, how good can you be at putting clothes on a clothes?
Well,
Are you high performing at folding those socks?
I think you're just talking about shit you should be doing.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the
that's
reframe.
right.
I guess that like in the hyper-optimized world that we're in, you can easily create a narrative of around like my mission is way bigger than doing putting the socks on. Like that's not going to serve, but it's actually is as important as the stillness. It's the like the small things that are just like they're the centering things.
Just
it's
being
like,
organised and feeling like life is in hand, you know, because sometimes life can feel like a strategic operation. But, you know, you've just kind of triggered this thought for me about what we do with our time, you know, like where we put it. Sometimes we'll get calls from people to say, you know, could you come and speak to our people about time management? And I go, in the same tone, you can't actually manage time. There's 24 hours in the day. And so one of the things that I wrote about and that I also talk about is, you know, for everything that we say yes to, we're saying no to something else. So how consciously are you planning what you do with your time? And actually what doing the washing and the folding and the stuff that has to be done is important, right? But when we say – and I think this feeds into the business stuff that we were talking about earlier, that we say yes to a lot of stuff that's not aligned with our purpose or that makes us busier than we need to be or doesn't allow the stillness that we need, So when we say, yes to that extra meeting, we're actually saying no to exercise. So being really aware of what we do say yes to. Say yes to folding the socks. Yeah.
I don't fold them. I definitely don't fold them. I just hang them. Well, I just put them sort of in the. Actually, I've done a mass chuck out of socks. That there was a certain one that I thought were good, but they're actually.
Did you buy in bulk?
Because you thought they were good?
That's
like
annoying.
Mr. 97 buys them from eBay. He gets bamboo
socks.
Bamboo socks.
You can't work out if it's the socks or his shoes that's making him
I
smell.
think it might be the shoes.
I reckon it's the socks. I think that if you
No, because bamboo, it doesn't it
from eBay, we actually don't know if it's bamboo.
Really? Could actually be something else.
The company's called Bamboo.
It's not
that counts. Totally counts.
Bamboo PTY.
Yeah.
One day bamboo. When
it's meant to wick away the sweat, isn't it? Does it?
Yeah,
That's
it's
the whole
meant to,
idea.
it's meant to be like antibacterial and antifungal.
Yeah.
Did you know you can get bamboo undies as well?
I did see that.
T-shirts are lovely.
I've got merino wool.
Yeah, they feel nice.
Do you get into merino?
I don't mind a bit of merino. Yeah.
I feel like going to New Zealand, you should get into the merino.
Actually, that's a good thought. I could bring you back a little bit of merino.
That'd be good. Yeah,
That'd
just
be
the
nice.
actual wool. Just in the little
a sheet.
a whole sheet.
Just going to bring it back for you.
Thank you, Lisa, for choosing your time.
Are we
going
to end on bamboo undies? Is
Yeah,
that what
absolutely.
we're
That's
doing?
how we roll. Do you have any other thoughts, 97, on how to end it?
Did you find out facts about the armadillo?
The armadillo, it's not intelligent. It's not smart. It's really determined.
Yeah,
That's me. Unintelligent, determined.
They can live up to 20 years in captivity or 10 years in the wild.
Right, so you could do 20 years in captivity.
You're in the wild here. Which
Yeah.
I
This is
think I'd live
captivity
longer
right
in
now.
captivity, to be honest. Like if I had everything done for me in the zoo,
Yeah.
I'd be
I mean,
good.
the other.
I never thought about that. That's what they're talking about. I straight away went to
jail.
Seriously, I didn't connect
anyway,
it.
what's the other one?
Who is holding an armadillo captive? That's what zoos are, really, aren't they?
They're
Never
jails,
thought about that. Yeah.
You're so special, aren't you?
Thank
You're
you.
very special.
The other cool thing is there's one type of armadillo that's got a defensive mechanism. And so when it's attacked, it'll jump 3 feet in the air.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you find
This
a YouTube
actually
video?
is your spirit animal.
is my
This
spirit
is
animal.
actually your spirit animal.
They call me armadillo.
We need to find an animal for everyone. What do we think Mr. 97's animal is? Little koala.
a koala.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know that he liked you calling him a koala. Then. He doesn't look very impressed by that.
What would you go, 97?
I don't know, maybe dolphin.
I was thinking dolphin.
dolphin.
Really? Yeah. They're horny as
And
well.
smart.
They are. Smart and horny.
Yeah. Very
I have
specific.
no comment. I have no comment.
But that was true.
He's actually blushing. Look what you did to him.
Whenever he finds me funny, he blushes, which is
Is that what you tell yourself?
That's a belief.
I was
Dolphin's
gonna
horny.
say,
Yeah. Well, no.
Is that what you tell yourself?
No, but you actually need a Mr. 97 for the laughing thing. Like when I, if I make any joke and it's subtle,
Yeah.
I look at 97 because he gets it. He knows what's up. Anyway.
Or is he just?
Or
he's just
being nice.
uncomfortable and awkward
He's
for
employed.
you. Yeah, that's right. That's his job.
Either way. Well, enjoy your trip to New Zealand. You're going to actually
I
take some time
will.
to relax.
And good luck, you guys.
thank you.
Thanks for having me. That was super fun.
Yeah.
Well,
nice to see you.
I'm looking forward to getting you back when, like, a new book is a good excuse just to deconstruct the whole
that's
thing.
a while
and
away.
talk
We
about-
might do something else before then.
Okay, let's do
I'd
it.
like to hear about, Mr. 97's bamboo undies.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We can talk about New
And
Zealand.
then we should- you should
we're
get-
always happy to hear
Yeah.
what the tradies at your house are saying about us.
Oh, yeah, that was
Yes.
nice too.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
sort of trade are they?
Pavers.
Pavers?
Laying
Like,
down the pavers.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
concrete stuff
been
as
our
well?
Concrete,
strategy.
pavers, leveling.
Big in the construction
It's actually
industry.
quite complicated.
To do that.
Shaping and
Oh, yeah.
cutting and
Definitely.
leveling.
Is it a driveway or what's the...
It's a little courtyard.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's
You're
gonna
going to have
be cute.
barbecues and stuff?
Yeah, I might invite you.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Might.
Yeah,
Keyword.
might.
Might. Probably won't.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Maybe.
But
There was not much commitment.
This is the best
in
part
that.
about recording a podcast. Like you have all these things. I'm
yeah.
cutting up everyone's invitations they've given to me over the year.
Yeah.
And I'll put it together as a
Yeah.
montage.
Yeah.
Anyway, hi at thedailytalkshow.com is the email address.
One more thing. If you're listening, Gemma Watts,
Oh, yeah,
Happy
Gemma.
birthday.
Oh, yeah,
Aw.
Gemma's birthday.
we just
Birthday,
sent it-
Gemma.
I sent her a text message. Did you?
mate, she listens to the podcast.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Gem.
Also, if you need video production, we do that. And so send us an email and we can help you. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. Why'd you just?
nearly
is
chose.
that sell too hard?
It was all right. Lisa, what do you think?
I love that. Why not?
Yeah,
Take
that's
the
what we're trying. That's what we're trying to do at the end of each
Yeah.
one. But
Yeah,
we're getting
great.
used to the ask.
Yeah.
So if you're,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
if
you
you
should
if you
ask.
enjoy the show, we want to keep doing it.
It's totally appropriate to ask people for their business.
And so we do like video production for. I think we specialize
done
in
it for me.
the human centered
Yeah.
stuff, celebrating people
Yeah.
in motion form, also known as video. All right. See you guys. Have a good one.
See you tomorrow.
See ya.